Hi everyone and welcome back to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel with me, Tom Campbell. Super excited to say it's another Meet the Elite team reveal. We've got Mark on the show. He's having a great season. Let's get his thoughts on the upcoming double game week. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back, Mark. It's great to have you back on the show. We can see on screen that your form is an upward trend, which is what we want to see from our elite managers. How is your season going, mate?
Hi Tom, thanks for having me on. Season's going not too bad. Pretty happy with how it's been going, even though I consistently feel like things are going wrong. I think everyone has a similar story. I think trending in the right direction heading into chip season, and I think I'm around 50,000, so that's where you want to be, really, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I'd love that personally, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers would do as well. But as you can see, we've got your overall rank here around sort of just over 30,000. Obviously, this info was put together during the game week, Mark. So we're recording Sunday night. We're just off the back of the mighty West Ham having been soundly beaten, which is fairly typical for me in this season. But it's great to see you, in those upper echelons already. You've got chips in play, and you mentioned the upcoming chip season. We're going to get into that. So on this show, guys, we're going to look at what Mark's team has been doing in game week 24 that's just completed. We're going to be taking a look at his plans for double game week 25 as well. And we're also going to take a look at a comparison between Kevin De Bruyne and Mo Salah, as obviously that is going to be a key situation that people are going to be mulling over in terms of whether or not it makes sense to switch out the Man City midfielder for the Liverpool FPL stalwart. So we'll get into that in a moment. But just before we look at game week 24, Mark, since we've had you on last time around, have there been any great decisions that you've been really happy with? It's sort of 4 or 5 game weeks since you've been on. We're seeing a nice upward trend sort of from around the 100k mark. What's been going well for you? How do you feel that what's been panning out well?
No, I wouldn't say I've made any great decisions or anything. Since Christmas, I have focused all of my transfers, I think, on just 2 or 3 positions.
Okay.
So nothing too dramatic. I made a really bad decision to get Almiron in. Maybe after I was on here last, I kind of got my thinking muddled about Newcastle against Fulham, and I really wanted to get some Newcastle attack. But I also wanted to get Ivan Toney, so I went for Almiron, and it was a weak decision. It worked, but it was a bad call.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think I had a tough decision last week whether to take a -4 for Bruno to Mahrez, and I felt really bad last week. Obviously, Mahrez had an extremely fortunate return, but it's come out in the wash now, and it's been better not to take that hit.
Well, so we shall see this in a moment, right? So I think that's a beautiful segue, Mark. So I mean, we're seeing nice upward trend here, lots of chips in hand. You've got money in the bank. Let's have a little look at how your team played out game week 24. So we can see on screen there, you've already mentioned that Bruno Fernandes is sitting nicely in that midfield. And what an impressive performance. What an impressive performance from Man United as a collective, Mark. I mean, I was thinking before this game, Leicester had been in good goal-scoring form. Man United are in so many competitions. Their players have got to be getting tired, you would think. But they pick up another resounding win. It's another clean sheet. How did you see that game? And how do you assess the Man United assets going forward, bearing in mind they've got that blank game week upcoming? How do you think FPL managers should be thinking about Man United assets?
It's really difficult because I think the players that we're going to sell this week we wouldn't normally want to sell or should sell. I'm not really going to talk about Rashford because everybody knows. I watched the game today. I've been extremely impressed with Luke Shaw's general play since this season. Fernandes is very good today. He could have had 4 assists. He will have to go this week.
Right.
But the story of today's game was that Leicester pummeled United. De Gea made 2 amazing saves. There was one bit of class at the top end of the pitch, and United went in 1-up and never looked back. So I'll keep Rashford for sure. I might keep Shaw, but I won't keep Fernandes. But it's nothing against him. I think he's looking like a really great asset now.
Yeah, he is. It's sort of coincided with Ronaldo leaving, hasn't it? And the post World Cup form for Man United has been exemplary, hasn't it? It's been really impressive, even with Casemiro missing. It's been impressive, and it's not the team that we would be looking to sell without the fixtures falling as they have done, right?
Yeah. Casemiro's gone missing and Eriksen has gone as well, and they've lost control in the middle of the field. And you can see in the last 3 games, the 2 against Leeds and this one today, they had no control through the middle for large periods of the game. And then, Casemiro made a big difference. I don't think he's a classic defensive midfielder like people might have thought, but he adds a lot in the middle that I think you can have Fred in there if he's got someone really good beside him. Yeah. But if he's in there with maybe Sabitzer or McTominay, he's a bit lost. Yeah, but I don't think you can have 2 of these guys together. You need Casemiro or Eriksen.
No, huge losses as they would be for any team, wouldn't they? So it's interesting. So you're already alluding to the plans for game week or double game week 25 in terms of Bruno Fernandes looking to need to make way. Just looking through the rest of the team, Mark, in terms of how you shaped up. Obviously, Reece James missing out for the game, the surprising loss, I guess, to Southampton with their new manager bounce, I guess. How are you feeling about Chelsea as a collective? Obviously, you've got Kepa in goal, who's been a phenomenal asset, as Corey and Dan and myself and Craig have talked about, and with some of them happier than others in the past. Yeah. How do you feel about them collectively? Obviously, Graham Potter under immense pressure, but in terms of them, from an FPL perspective, what's your read on Chelsea?
My read on Chelsea is 2 is more than enough right now. I think Kepa and James are they both have their own exceptional circumstances. Kepa, the value and his ability to haul, and James is, if he can get on the pitch, we know he's dangerous. So I'm happy to have them purely because they have games in 25 and 28. I was very fortunate that I didn't go for Cancelo because it means I haven't needed to move James on. So I'll hold on to him. I thought it was unusual that he played 2 90s in a row and then missed the game. I would have thought it would have made more sense to, maybe give him some time off midweek. But it depends on what Potter is prioritising there. Yeah, I know there was a push for João Felix this week, but I'm not convinced how people could watch that Chelsea team, and despite how good he is individually, how they could think it's an attack to invest in right now.
Interesting take. I think obviously Match of the Day watchers will have picked up on a similar assessment from Shearer and Mika Richards yesterday in terms of what they're trying to do as a collective unit. It just feels a bit disjointed, right? I mean, the defensive assets you've mentioned there are separate to that, but as an attacking unit, it feels like not functioning is being kind to them right now.
Yeah, let's call it a work in progress.
Yeah,
I think it's
mad, isn't it, how the stock can change? Potter being thought of so highly, rightly so, for all of the great work he did at Brighton, and you fast forward a few months and he could be looking at his job being under threat, for the run that he's had and the money that have been spent. Anyway, let's look further afield. I don't think we want to talk about Kieran Trippier much. We spend every week talking about Kieran Trippier, so let's brush past him. That midfield looks sexy though, doesn't it, Mark? I mean, if we put fixtures aside, goodness me, that is lots of money in there and lots of great players. What's your feeling though about the Prince Harry lookalike Kevin De Bruyne there? I mean, he managed to dodge some points, didn't he, against Forest? Yeah. How are you feeling about him? And we'll come on to the comparison between him and Mo in a moment. But as an overall asset, what's your feeling?
It's not good. It's not a good feeling. He returned opportunistically midweek.
Sure.
He could have hauled yesterday. Rodri and Laporte missed really good chances that he put in the plate for them. But you just don't feel good. He's starting to get back into gear, but I don't think he's at the level I'd hope for. 12 point whatever he is.
Yeah, we'll take a look in a moment at his stats. Yeah, it's a lot of money, isn't it, to be invested in someone who's.
That's the issue, really. Yeah, I mean, Bruno, 9 million seems fair. Maybe 10 for De Bruyne, the way he's performing now.
Yeah, and Saka, I mean, man, what a player, and another nice return in the game against Villa. Kind of curious penalty there, but I mean, a lovely player, right? And is your feeling on him? He's the best Arsenal attacking player to own going into double game week 25?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, him or Odegaard, obviously, but I got Saka coming out of Christmas,
Sure.
and I know people pulled out statistics and things like that, but when I watch a game, it's Saka.
Yeah, I understand, man.
He's the one you want.
Yeah, I understand that.
He's an
I mean,
exceptional talent.
he really is, man, isn't he? We've got amazing tools over at fantasyfootballfix.com, which I'm sure a lot of the viewers use, and you and the other elite managers are big fans of in terms of the modelling capacity and capability we have there. But when you watch Saka play, goodness me, he's a class act, isn't he? Let's look at that attack then, Mark. You've got Haaland. Obviously, many people will have captained him. Good on the people who went for Rashford instead for game week 24. And Nketiah, another points dodging effort from him against Aston Villa. Still feeling super happy with him going into the double. We'll talk about Mitrovic in a minute, but in terms of Nketiah, happier with him as a hold?
Yeah, I mean, you got to hold him, but am I happy about having him? Not particularly. You know, he's missing chances. But hopefully he can take those. But we don't really know his quality yet. I think we haven't seen enough of him to know, is he missing chances that he's likely in future to score, or is he just always going to be missing chances? I don't feel we know enough about his quality to say he'll eventually start capitalizing on his expected returns.
Fair point. And I mean, obviously, Jesus not having featured yet, I guess we can feel pretty assured that Nketiah should get minutes in both of the games, fitness providing for both of the game weeks or both of the games, in double game week 25. So seems to make sense. I'll talk to you about your ideal Arsenal trio when we come on to talk about your setup for game week 25 in a moment, Mark. Mitrovic, though, I mean, we've talked to other elite managers here. The underlying stats have been great for weeks with him. Fulham are still having a really impressive season, but what's your feeling there? Do you think the money for Mitrovic is going to be better off spent elsewhere?
It's hard to think about moving him out this week if he's fit, but yeah, I think he's on a fairly short lifespan in my team if he keeps doing what he's been doing.
He has been warned,
Yeah, he's just always got these niggles, and he, even if he didn't have the niggles and the knocks, he doesn't look like the fittest kind of guy. His build is quite robust, so you never feel great about his fitness, I think.
Okay.
There's something going on, maybe underlying.
Interesting. But, options are obviously more limited when we come to a blank game week and what have you. So that kind of leads us nicely into how you're kind of thinking you might be set up for double game week 25. So let's have a little look. And this is obviously very preliminary. We're recording Sunday night. Lots can happen. But let's have a look at the type of thoughts that you're having ahead of that double game week. So here we are there, Mark. We've set things up as per the notes that people can head over to fantasyfootballfix.com, take a little look at the blog section that we've got for our elite managers. And look, as ever, you elite managers, you're always well prepared for the double game week season. It's the time where we can all cash in and make loads of gains, right? Broad brush, how are you thinking you're set up then, Mark? You happy with the compilation that you've got in terms of double game weekers?
Yeah, I think it's okay. Bruyne and Bailey aren't exceptional, but if you can get someone like that who'll get you 1-2 points, okay, fine.
Sure.
I'm happy enough with Saka, obviously, and Nketiah. The one there that I think probably I'm not too happy with for obvious reasons is Ben White. And one thing that I'm considering is ways of turning White into Odegaard. So maybe White and Fernandes to Trent and Odegaard makes a lot of sense, I think.
So we should say, shouldn't we, Mark, you've got the 2 free transfers, is that correct, going into this double game week?
Yeah, and I've about 1 million in the bank,
Lovely. Okay, so that's interesting. So for people who I imagine a lot of people watching have got that 3 Arsenal complement of Ben White, Saka and Nketiah, then actually you're thinking that 3 is better off removing the defensive asset and saying, let's bring in Odegaard and get Trent Alexander-Arnold in back there. I mean, he looked decent, didn't he, in the last 2 games, I guess, from a Liverpool perspective.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly, whatever changes have been made, he looks more like he did previously in the last 2 games. Let's see how it goes tomorrow night or Tuesday night.
Yeah, that's right.
Against Madrid. But I think there's a lot of upside to getting Odegaard and Trent, even if it does mean I'm losing a double game week player in White. I'm kind of in an okay position insofar as I can make a luxury transfer.
Yeah.
Because I have 10 players already.
Yeah, you do.
And then Darwin's there, but I think there would have to be an injury to Mitrovic for me to go to Darwin.
Yeah.
And for a little bit of icing on the cake, I'd be considering De Bruyne to Salah as well for a
Well, we'll
minus
come
four
on to
grand.
that. We'll end the video with that comparison and get your thoughts, and we'll have a look at how the two players have performed recently. So just put a pin in that one for a moment there. I think. Well, I'm super intrigued though by the Liverpool collective. Right, it feels mad, doesn't it, that we're approaching a Liverpool double game week, and when I look at across all of these elite managers' teams, there's no Liverpool players in them, and it makes complete sense because they've just not been performing. They're off the back of a couple of wins now. What did you make of that performance against Newcastle? I mean, obviously Pope being sent off at 2-0, I would have expected them to have gone on and scored more. But from watching the highlights, I wasn't that impressed. What was your read on Liverpool there in that game?
Yeah, I found the Pope red card very amusing because I was sitting beside a guy who'd benched Leno to play Pope when I was watching it yesterday.
No.
So he wasn't too happy. It was really strange because they looked so good, and when Pope went off, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be serious. And Salah, he's lively without looking like his old clinical self.
Yeah,
and that makes me wonder about getting him.
sure.
But if they show up on Tuesday and they play well, the gravity towards Liverpool is going to be undeniable, and it totally makes sense. It's a really nice double game week.
Yeah,
we know these guys can pull in double figures in any game. I wouldn't let their slump get into my head too much. I just play the week as optimistically for Liverpool as possible.
Yeah, I like it, and it's nice from an FPL player pool selection perspective, Mark. Seeing the likes of Diego Jota on the pitch went close with a header. Goodness me, he's good in the air, isn't he? And Bobby Firmino getting back on the pitch. Virgil van Dijk obviously back in after several weeks out, and what have you. Cody Gakpo scoring. It feels like there could be some momentum behind Liverpool that we'd be kind of expecting that to manifest quite well in a double game week, right?
Yeah, the other side of the coin is like you don't want to get beached with someone like Firmino or Jota, and you find out they're only coming on for 20 minutes of every game, because there's the risk you have with double game weeks. You get beached on players you don't want, and I always think back to last season when everyone ended up with 2 Watford strikers just because it was a double. I think
Good
doubles
times.
are a good opportunity.
Yeah.
That was ferocious stuff. They're a good opportunity to get people in that you want, but don't get people you're not going to be happy keeping.
And there we go. That's a great piece of advice from a great manager there. And I mean, making the selection pool is one thing, but actually the fact that you're leaning towards Trent Alexander-Arnold as your potential Liverpool inclusion, I guess, speaks volumes, right? Him fit is going to have that right back berth controlled, right? Yeah. And owned. I get it. Cool. I mean, the team looks good to me, set up in terms of just a little bit of chip strategy talk. Mark, have you thought much about chip deployment over the coming game weeks, or is that still a little bit further down and we can revisit in the coming game weeks?
Yeah, not really, to be honest, because I've been focusing on just getting through 25 to make moves that will allow 25 to be good. And we really need to see what happens in the FA Cup games. I know there are projections out there of the most likely things that can happen in 28. But when you see yesterday's results, I think there were in the 3 o'clock games, there were 5 games that didn't go to form.
Yeah.
And upsets do happen. I wouldn't be too inclined to commit to anything. Looking at the shape of the fixtures, the first thing that popped out at me was maybe something like dead end into 28, then maybe a free hit in 29, and then perhaps a wild card.
Okay.
Or if your team is okay, maybe just string it out for a few more weeks. But I think your priority at this point is keeping your options open. And that's why I think, I don't think people should make moves here thinking, oh yeah, I can just wild card if I get myself into trouble.
Yeah.
You really should be a little bit more careful than that.
Like it. Good advice. I've seen some rumblings on Twitter that some folks, some good managers as well, are tempted to deploy the free hit in double game week 25. Doesn't feel like that's something appropriate for you here, Mark, obviously with the way that you've set up. Is it a play that you think is viable? Say if the team has found itself with, say, just a handful of starters and a lack of double game weekers, do you think actually not a bad game week to chuck that free hit chip in and try and make use of the double game week fixtures that we've already referred to?
It's not anything I've ever been a fan of. I think what I would always have tried to have done in situations where my team wasn't, as well set as this, would be just to cover the main captaincy shouts and hope for the best. I think there's far more important weeks for your chips to use. I'd rather go after a big week than a small week.
Like it. Yeah, that's cool, man. I get it, and I think the viewers will too. Anyway, we've been threatening this comparison for a while, Mark, so let's have a little look at how KDB, who's in your team right now for double game week 25, shapes up against a prospective inclusion of Mo Salah. Okay, cool. Lots of numbers on the board here, so I'll let people just have a chance to take those in here. So what we're basically showing here is the stats per 90 minutes for the game weeks up to and including the final one before the World Cup, and then the period afterwards as well. So we can, because I think a lot of people, Mark, my feeling is that people who've been with Kevin De Bruyne for a while now will see all this money, this 12.4 million at the time of recording, see an upcoming double for Mo Salah, and just think this is a no-brainer to shift this across as a kind of sideways move. Historically, Salah's been incredible, hasn't he? Looking at how these stats are playing out in terms of, the expected goals, assists, expected FPL points and what have you, do you think it's a no-brainer? Do you think it's just a sideways, let's just do this and move Kevin De Bruyne out? He's playing, he's got Bournemouth in this game, a home game against Newcastle, away at Palace, and then home against West Ham. So all being told, a nice run. The prospect of selling him doesn't feel great, but what's your thought?
Yeah, I was discussing with a few people on Twitter today about this, and I was saying I don't think Salah's essential for this, but that doesn't mean he's not the best move.
Okay, like phrasing. Mm-hmm.
I think you can get around it, but when you look at these numbers from Fix, the goals are king and penalty takers are premium assets, and it's just so simple. It's so straightforward. I think maybe anything else is overdoing it. And then if you consider that there will be a possibility that De Bruyne gets benched or doesn't play, like we saw Mahrez yesterday didn't play, the -4 is worth it on appearance points alone. You've got it covered.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned expected goals, Mark, didn't you? If we just draw people's eyes to the expected goals per 90 after the World Cup, a goal every other game or half a goal a game, depending on how you want to phrase it for Salah. 0.09 for Kevin De Bruyne. It's really not looking particularly potent, is it?
Yeah. Nah, it's absolutely pathetic, really. He's been infuriating, actually, to be honest with you. I really detest the majority of my team, and only that he's ginger, he'd really be getting some abuse, but I have to forgive him.
You do, yeah. You make exceptions for such important stats, don't you? We should get that on Fix, shouldn't we? And
it's very important to me.
So, I mean, but that bearing in mind, when we looked at your team before, that move hadn't been made. So, if I was to push you then, Mark, do you think Salah's going to be finding his way into your team for double game week 25? Yeah. You do?
I think so. -4? Yeah, I think so. He probably, yeah. I think I'll go after this week. I don't think I'm going to stand idly by while the likes of Trent and Salah get 20 points.
No, I understand. I'm just going to flick back, Mark, to the team in terms of how you'd be set up for 25. And I should say, guys, as well, just whilst this start's coming up, I will have included timestamps on the video, so you will be able to hop around and take a look at the bus team and the comparison, etc. And hopefully that will be useful for you. So if this was the personnel, Mark, for game week 25, no injuries that take place over you mentioned the Champions League fixtures and the need to be prudent. 2 free transfers in the bank, £1 million there to play with. What's Mr. Mansfield going to do ahead of game week 25? What moves are you going to be making?
He's going to take out Ben White, De Bruyne and Fernandes, and he's going to bring in Trent, Odegaard and Salah.
Yeah, for a -4 total.
If you wanted some inside information, that's what could happen.
I like it.
But I'll update my notes on the Fix Elite 11 feature during the week if I have any other significant changes or thoughts.
Sure. No, that makes total sense, and that will leave you then with one Man City player going into the latter part of the season. But obviously, we still have transfers, don't we? We've still got a wild card in the pocket as well. So that team will be shaping up nicely, and it's nice to see. I'm a big fan of Bailey there sitting in the Villa midfield. He actually went really close, didn't he, in the Arsenal game?
Yeah,
just went. And I think you've mentioned, and certainly other elite managers have mentioned, actually as a fifth midfielder, do we think he's now ahead of Andreas Pereira?
Well, he lost his place, didn't he? Mm-hmm. So it depends. Maybe that was just tactical. Maybe he wanted, people who could hold the ball, Coutinho and Buendia. He wanted them for more control. But I'd hope that Bailey will get in next week. They're playing.
They got Everton away.
Yeah, I kind of get the feeling he might get back in for that.
Yeah, could see it, couldn't you? That's a nice actual final segue, Mark, before we wrap things up. But we haven't actually mentioned Everton as part of this. So obviously Dyche is now a few games in. Another clean sheet, another win for them. You've not mentioned any plans to bring those in. I guess you've got bigger fish to fry in terms of the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mo Salah to come into the team. But if you did have occasion or motivate or opportunity, I guess, to bring in Everton players, where'd you be looking? What do you think looks good there in terms of the Everton upcoming double that they have?
Yeah, I think a couple of the guys in Elite 11 have brought in Tarkowski this week and actually poxed his points off the bench. Mm-hmm. It has been noted. And I think that's where I'd go as well. Partly on the same rationale as what I was saying about the Chelsea players. They have games when you need players to have games, namely 25 and 28. So Tarkowski, he got his big head on the end of a few things there.
He did
yesterday.
He did.
So yeah,
sorry, go on.
Not as talented as Ireland's own Seamus Coleman, obviously.
Oh, what a finish! What a finish!
Yeah,
what a great finish, and I think he meant it as well. We'll give him the due. He's not ginger, but he's Irish, so he gets the.
He'll do.
He gets the credit there. And look, I mean on the serious there. So Tarkowski, the threat seemed to be that McNeil was the one finding him again. Match of the day focused on that delivery there. Do you think? I mean, looking at that midfield, it's going to be hard to justify an inclusion of Dwight McNeil. Do you think there's anything to recommend him, or is it just Tarkowski and no one else really in the Everton side that you'd be interested in?
I would say McNeil is a prime example of what I was speaking about earlier, getting blinded by the lights. If you end up with McNeil in your team, you'll hate yourself.
Yeah, it feels super short term, doesn't it? An awful lot of things would have to go right for you in double game week then, and then you'd be stuck with them anyway. So
I think it's just Tarkowski from Pickford. I can see why people might go to Pickford.
Okay, not a player I'd heard. Okay, interesting. Yeah, fair enough. So it's the defensive route for Everton, though. You think though, definitely. Yeah. And I guess obviously we're looking on screen at the moment. You've got a Wolves player there in Bueno. I guess the price lends itself to that. Is there anyone else from the Wolves side, or is that just a make weight that happens to have a lovely double that you've looked to include there? There's no one else in terms of the Wolves setup you'd be recommending. No,
I just looked into Bueno.
Yeah,
maybe one other player I'd consider from Everton, if it suits you, and I'd go for him before McNeil, is Doucouré.
Okay, interesting. Go on.
Doucouré can be dangerous. You often see him breaking into the box.
Yeah.
And he goes through little purple patches. So I think if Dyche is thinking of deploying him as a break-in midfielder or as a number 10, then he can do some damage. But again, I think he'd be as a make weight in something else you're trying to do, perhaps.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's just having a little look at the prices. So you've got 5.3 million for Doucouré there, and 5.1 for McNeil. So not a lot between it. I mean, it's still punt territory, isn't it, Mark, for that? So based on everything that you've said, it's going to be looking more for the folks who've proved themselves over a number of months and years, where in terms of the Liverpool assets, and obviously trebling up on the Arsenal guys as they look to go again for the title, right? It feels like this title title race is ebbing and flowing nicely. And Man United, are they in it? What do you think?
They're not out of it, but they're not in it. So they need a few things to happen. But I think they'd be more than happy with a League Cup and third place. I think that'd be
football assured. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
And
yeah, they're looking good. They're looking good.
Yeah, and still in the in Europe, aren't they? They've had a nice result in the away match in the Camp Nou. So yeah, could be, what a season they're having after being absolutely wretched last season
Yeah,
as well. What a turnaround.
yeah. One other thing just that I
Yeah,
like from my current plans is that I get to keep Shaw, and
yeah,
Shaw looks really good.
he
I
does.
think there's
Yeah,
no need,
it's
he's there
it's
for the long haul.
I agree, and I think it's sorry I was cutting across you, Mark, but I thought it's great that Ten Hag has shown a willingness to play him at left centre half when Malacia does come in, or Malacia comes in at left back, doesn't he? So he does seem like he's pretty locked into playing some form of role in
Yeah.
that back four every week, and yeah, he's been impressive, hasn't he? Mark, super enjoyable talking to you as ever. You're having a great season. I'm sure it will continue. Any other final thoughts ahead of Double Game Week 25?
Not really. Just keep an eye on the midweek games and enjoy the double.
Yeah, man. Agree. We will absolutely keep an eye on that. We'll also keep an eye on your blog for your updated thoughts throughout the week as the Champions League games and the other European fixtures play out, and we'll see how the graph trends when we get you back on the show in a few weeks' time. So thanks ever so much for coming on the show again, Mark. We'll talk to you again soon. Guys, do please smash a like on the video on your way out. Do please subscribe to fantasyfootballfix.com. Do please subscribe to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel and follow all of our other content. We've got lots more coming throughout the week, and I'll talk to you again all next week. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye-bye.